give me the finger.
We,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, welcome to another edition of the Quantum Lounge. David Cohen here. I'm kind of acting as host, although all our participants here are more than capable hosts. And tonight we're just having a little discussion on a spiritual solution, because we know sometimes in this day and age the political solution might not be the answer. The medical solution might not be the answer to what's going on in the world today. But what's the spiritual solution? And Megan, I'm going to start with you because you've got some really inspirational views on what a spiritual solution is. So that's what I want to ask you. And then how do you see it playing out in terms of assisting us through these mass challenges that we're all seeing in the world today, from race issues to economic issues to political tensions? How do you see what is spiritual solution to you, and then how do you see it playing out and maybe helping us moving forward?
Thanks, David. So that wasn't a loaded question if I ever heard one, but that's okay. So spiritual solution, the best word that I have to describe it is love. Love. That's it. Because when we focus on that, it changes everything else that we look at. Our perception of all of the things that you just mentioned shifts. And then we are unified. We're talking about a conscious collective. That's what it is. It's it's when we can all come together in this reality, this world that we're living in, no matter what is going on outside of us. We can all come together and recognize that we are all based in love. And that is our true spirit. And when we realize that that is what is really going on and everything else is secondary, we can shift everything that's going on by our perception of it. But
And
we all have to come together. That's the key here.
right.
It's not about the self, okay? It's about the whole.
And so, what does love to you look like in terms of how does that play out in real world issues that we're sort of seeing and facing?
So it plays out in our actions, in the way that we treat other people, in the decisions that we make when things are going on that maybe we're not happy about. It plays out in the moments in between and the things that we choose to think, say, and do to each other. And if we shifted all of that and just whenever we went to say something or do something or take a certain action, we thought about love and how would we want to be treated in this situation. And then we took that step, that action towards another person. We said that to somebody. We looked at the situation and recognized that I was at a place where I was in this exact same situation as this person in front of me. And that was I was doing my best at that particular moment in time. And that's what they're doing. And just because we don't agree, it doesn't mean that we are not together, that we are not connected. And when we recognize that that is the real truth and the experience that we are having that is creating this false sense of separation is the illusion, then we can actually move forward and get somewhere and work together.
And Anna, I'm going to go to you. This is beautiful, Megan. Thank you so much. And yeah, you rose to the challenge because it was not a cookie cutter easy answer. But Anna, I'm going to move to you if you just unmute. And you're someone that when I speak to you off air or whatever, you're somebody that embraces self love. And how does self love help you have compassion and love for others? How has that helped you? And how did you arrive at your own, having that self love for yourself? Because I see that in you. It's just you embody it.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Megan, for sharing. Um, for me, I think self care has been something that I gave myself permission to focus on for the last 6 years. I think as a mother, we tend to focus a lot on the well being and the upbringing of our children and our families. And sometimes, a mom tends to feed her child before she feeds herself. So I kind of did a very drastic thing a few years ago. And once my kids were independent and moved on in life, I decided to simplify my life. I sold everything, my home. I quit my job and I simplified life because I had gone through a very difficult chapter in my life. And what I realized was a lot of people who endured a lot of similar challenges had health issues. And so for me, it was really important that since I was dealing with a lot of personal pressures, that self care became a very high priority. So for me, simplifying life was a big thing, and spending time in nature and being self sustainable. I wanted to learn how to nourish my body, my mind, and my soul. So I have a very strong faith. So my faith, I clung to my faith. So that was really important, was self care. And also to just spending time, with my faith, I always looked up, Father God. But it really hit me when I moved to the country, the significance of Mother Earth and all the nourishment that the earth gives us. And so my fascination has been with all the treasures that grow from the ground. And so that's a big part of my life now, is really looking at the natural medicine that grows around us and how I can offer knowledge and insights to other people so that they can, kind of weather the storm. We're dealing with some really difficult times now. And I think it's really important as people who tend to be empaths, and for those of us who practice kindness and compassion, sometimes we can overextend ourselves and get that, compassion fatigue and caregiver burnout. So I think in today's day, it's really important that we really, self-care allows us to be compassionate to ourselves, but really once we serve ourselves, we can be more efficiently and effectively compassionate to others. And it's just so important now to go through life with a few people who feel like they're part of the same tribe. And I would say that you all, my quantum family, feels like we all kind of we know each other. We were meant to find each other at this precious time on the planet. And I think it's wonderful just to go through the journey together. So yeah, compassion and self-care. And I love to share my beautiful space and my energy with people. So if anybody wants to come and hang out with me up north and listen to the birds and explore some natural medicine that grows all around us for our lungs, for our health, I'd be happy to share that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks. I'm going to throw to Carl. And Carl, the question I'm going to ask you here is I'm going to say you're a mild Beatles fan. Mild. So if John Lennon were alive today, what would he say about love? He sang about it. What would he advise and suggest if he were alive today?
He would say, there's nothing that can be done that can't be done. There's nothing you can sing that can't be sung. There's nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. All we need is love. And it's that simple. It really is. But love is an energy. Love is a frequency. And everything is energy. And when you're taking your last breath, we all will take our last breath. We won't think of anything else except love. The people we're leaving. It really, really, you will feel that love because you won't be in fear anymore. Fear is the lowest energy. David Hawkins wrote a book about it, Power versus Force. And he proved that everything is a frequency. Enlightenment is the highest, but love is extremely high up there, you know. And our brain is a supercomputer. And everything that you, especially from the time you're born to the age of 7, you're downloading everything. But everything, even now, what you're exposed to, are you exposed to, you watching fear-driven news? Are you watching horrific things on TV? Because I don't watch TV, but now and again, I would go to my mum's house and I see everything that's on. So many things. It's like, it's violence and it's a low energy, you know? And spirituality and science have now met. So all the messages of Jesus and all the great ones that came to our planet thousands of years ago and said, we're all connected, we're all as one. Quantum physics now proves that. Absolutely, 100%. Everything is connected, and everything that we're putting out there, thoughts are actually things. Thoughts are a frequency that's going out into the world. Have you got 7 billion people scared and putting fearful thoughts out? That's what we're going to create on the planet. So, number one, as Anna and Megan said, it's vitally important that we go within, we find our love, because you can't give anything to someone that you don't have inside of you.
So my last question for you is, if John was alive, what would he be singing about right now?
Oh my God.
His last album was, I think he did a tribute to his son, right? And his wife. But what would he sing about today?
Well, he did sing Imagine, which is an incredible song. And Einstein also said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Now, again, through quantum physics, that's been proven. I think he'd sing Imagine again. But more people might be more consciously aware to really listen about their messages. Simply love each other, care for people, smile at anyone that you meet. A lot of people now, if you go walking, people don't look at you anymore. And that's a lot of it. It's sad because they're in their own world of that fear, you know?
Yeah, well, they're wearing a mask, right? So
yeah. But even,
size,
even just let people know you care. Just with a little word, you go for a coffee. Don't treat them as a person behind the counter. Treat them as your brother or your sister and show them love. They'll feel it. And as we know, in giving you shall receive. You get that back. That's how we can change the world.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, David.
Rob, you're our younger statesman. What are younger people thinking now about this? Like I actually wanted to do a whole podcast or show about what the younger generation thinks, and do you see, like, among your peers that younger people are they pissed off? Pardon my language. Are they hopeful? And do you feel that they're ready to make change? And if so, what's that change going to look like?
Yeah, great question, David, and thank you for asking. It's difficult to classify, people in my age ranges, because there's people who are awake and there's people who are not, and there's everybody in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's coming at it from different perspectives and different levels, but to speak to what everybody else said and love and coming to those spiritual solutions to those problems, I think that it's tough because we're in a generation where people don't really believe in God, so maybe they call it the universe. They grew up with different religions. Some religions aren't healthy. Some of them I think are fear driven, you know, even just growing up predominantly Catholic for most of my life. I think I mentioned it. I'm not sure if it's on our podcast or somebody else's, but it felt like you don't do this or you're going to be a sinner and God's going to, you know, punish you. And so people were so scared to get out of their shells and be creative for fear of making a mistake. And that's, you know, that's what Carl really discussed about people. We're all co-creating this, and having people that are constantly bombarded by the negative news and living in a fear. It's really hard for people that don't live in fear not to absorb it. And also for us to, we have to work above and beyond right now, like Carl said, to, you know, just smiling at somebody, you know, giving it a little bit of an extra tip to somebody, you know, at the gas station, or a waiter, or somebody, you know, right now people just need that little extra nudge, the kind compliment, or, you know, it's something that's authentic, like, hey, I love your shoes, and, you know, like, or just, you know, and I think that we're all going through it in our own way. So we're all having difficulty. A lot of us talked about alienating from our families. So we do have to come at it with love, and really understand that love is a frequency, because a lot of us have confusion about what love actually is, because, you know, growing up, people say I love you, but not everybody who says I love you means it. And that's really difficult for people who come from abusive families, or even families that weren't necessarily abusive, perhaps just narcissistic, and they didn't know what love means. And somebody else on the call mentioned you can't give what you don't have. And so a lot of people, I think, are confused what love actually meant. And even myself at times, where I think I know it's a frequency, and, you know, I'm 37 now, but there's times where it's like, is love just a word? What's the difference between love between a mother and a father, or a boyfriend and girlfriend? Is love sex? What is love like? And we realize that it is, you come to a point where you realize it is a frequency. It's, you can come at any situation with love or fear, basically. I think those are the two biggest polarizing emotions or feelings that we have. And it's scary sometimes going into the unknown. And, you know, Carl mentioned imagination being more important than knowledge, and it's so true, because imagination could set us, I don't think any of us would be here tonight if we didn't let our imaginations take us a little bit, you know, maybe go into something scary, go into a meeting that, you know, maybe you didn't have time for, saying yes to, you know, and just following your heart and saying, how does this really feel? And not what your mom says, not what your brother says, not what your spouse says, not what your kid says. How does it make you feel? Because it's just your journey. You know, at the end of your life, you might not be surrounded by any of the people you know right now. And that's just the reality of it. Like Carl said, when we take our last breath, you know, some of us, we might outlive all the other people in our lives. You know, I've known a friend who was 100 years old, and he said all his friends had gone before him, you know, and that was what he had to deal with. So you have to just go your own way. And I know it's speaking with a lot of my friends in smaller communities, they feel very scared right now, because they might be awake, but everybody around them is just sleeping, spewing the fear and the same mainstream narrative. Hey, are you getting your vaccine? When did my personal health become a topic of conversation? So people are really scared. And I think what we have here now, and the spiritual solution, is to just be a guide, and hopefully people will see us and see the friendship we've bonded, and the, you know, the diverse backgrounds that we come from, and say, hey, wow, these people are a loving, open, accepting group, and they really get it. And I feel comfortable enough to reach out to them, whether it's a phone call or an email, whether they want to come on their show and discuss what's going on in their lives. We're going to create that for them, because that's created out of love, and we're going to put it out, and we're going to get it back. And that's the only way I can see how we can do it. I hope that answered your question.
Totally, beautifully. And our last question, thank you, Rob. Wow, man, you amaze me. My last question is for elder statesman, Alan Fisher, a former judge and lawyer, and in radio too. And Alan, I'm going to talk to you about radio, because I'm taking it you were around in the '60s for radio, right? Maybe just.
Yeah.
And there was a little trial run in the '60s about love. You know, you had songs like "All You Need Is Love," and then, you know, hey, you know, everybody, let's get together, smile on one another. You know, and all, you had all those sort of love songs, and it was a very tumultuous time too back then. You know, you had Vietnam War, you had Kennedy's getting assassinated, Martin Luther King, and songs that came out about togetherness and love, and you know, so that was, to me, it was a sort of a trial run. What do we need to do now to sort of, as you look back on that, what do we need to do today to not make it a trial run, but to make it part of our, you know, everyday lives? So you got the
Thank you,
last word.
David. That was wonderful. I think the 60s, for a lot of that, the music groups and all that, a lot of it was
Oh, you just froze.
drug driven.
Alan?
Okay, you got to come back because we lost. You froze. So you were saying it was drug driven.
Yeah. Whereas to get high on life, as John Denver sang, I don't know if he was into drugs or not, but
I think
his suggestion was getting high on life. And I think what you're seeing here demonstrated, as Rob was saying, is a spiritual family, all ages, 2 different genders, and some with hair, some follically challenged. But we love each other and we are coming from the same place. So I will ask to those who are watching, what do we all have in common? And my answer is life. Beyond drugs, beyond race, beyond nationality, beyond ages, is we all have life. And that's what people are forgetting nowadays. They're so concerned about dying. Well, what are you living for? We have been given this gift of life. That's what we all have in common. So when you recognize that, there is a love for life. I call it life. You can call it God, you can call it source, but I call it life because we each have our own experience of that. And there's nothing more wonderful than to meet a kindred spirit, to love a kindred spirit who is coming from the same place and say, hi, buddy, how's your circumstance? Mine is, so right now. You know, they're shooting, they're at war, they're at this or at that, but I have life. How about you? Do you have life? Are you alive now? You bet your ass I am. That's the most important thing in the world, and that's the most powerful thing in the world. It makes us blink. It puts us to sleep at night. It grows our hair. And it allows us to love one another because you're transcending all the differences of political differences, the economic differences, the racial differences. It's a whole other dimension when you are in touch with life. And all you have to do is breathe. All you have to do is touch your face and see what a miracle it is. So I'm delighted to be with friends, spiritual friends who understand this and who can share this with everybody. It's wonderful. Thank you, David, for pointing it out. And let's see, the 2020s is going to be the fulfillment of the 60s.
All right. Yeah, and they
David?
had darn
Sorry,
good music
David.
back then too, you know. So that was really good. Carl, last word.
Yes, I would like to throw that question back to you, David Cohen, fabulous host of radio, an author of 2 great books. And we wanted you to be part of this group because of your love, your absolute compassion. I've known you probably for the last 15 years, and I didn't know you as consciously aware as now I know you. I'd like to throw that question back to you.
Well, you know, I was consciously aware when I first met you. And,
I didn't know it though.
and you talk about love because I used to meet you at that cafe in Whitby.
Coffee culture.
Coffee culture, and I would have loved it if you bought me a coffee once.
No way.
That's my answer. No, you know, it's just I'm really honored that I got to interview you all, and I love interviewing and hosting. and facilitating. So these are my passions. So I'm bringing my loves to you all as guests, and to those that are going to be watching. Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, everybody. Wonderful work. And cut.